Hi everybody, I hope this video finds you well. In today's video, I'll be introducing our class, Math 150 150S, and going over the syllabus for our course. Let me start by saying a little bit about the structure of our class. Our class will be taught in what is called an asynchronous manner. This means that there will be no mandatory meeting times during the semester, and all content will be delivered to you via lecture videos on YouTube. We will also be making a lot of use of our Canvas page. On our Canvas page, you will find all the files you need for our class, announcements, discussion boards, and your grades. You will also be submitting all of your assignments via Canvas. Also, let me take this time to remind you that since this is a summer course, the pace of this class is twice as fast as a normal class. There are assignments due basically every week and exams occurring every other week. It will be essential to keep up with the material, and you should plan on watching a few lecture videos every day during the term. Daily schedules will be posted on Canvas to make sure you're staying on track, and it is very important to follow them as best you can. Now, what is Math 150 all about? Well, it is a survey course introducing statistics and probability. That means during the next 8 weeks, we'll be covering a wide range of topics, from sampling theory to descriptive statistics to probability, inferential statistics, and data modeling. Our course won't go super deep into any one area, but instead it will try to provide you with a framework that will be useful in future classes, other disciplines, or just life in general. This class is truly one of the most directly and immediately applicable classes you can take. So, I'm really excited to work with all of you for the next 8 weeks. With all that being said, let's go ahead and actually introduce our course properly and go over this syllabus. First of all, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Ben Mitchell, and I will be your instructor for the next 8 weeks here. Before we get into the sort of details of the class and everything, let's talk about one of the most important aspects of our class, especially since we are a fully online asynchronous course. Let's talk about the different sort of paths or modes of contact. There are 3 major ways to sort of contact, ask questions, get help, get support during our course, and I'd like to go over each of those. First of all, there's of course direct email. My email is listed right here at the top of the syllabus. It's bmitchell@elcamino.edu. You can always feel free to shoot me an email whenever you have a quick question. Email is really good for asking sort of personal questions like about your grade or how you're approaching the material or anything that's coming up sort of with how you individually are handling the course. The second major thing, major way for contact in our class is we will have weekly office hours via Zoom. Our hours are listed here. They will occur each week on Tuesdays from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. and Thursdays from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. On the morning of each of these office hours, you'll receive a reminder email letting you know that that office hour is coming up, along with the link to the Zoom meeting. These office hours will have a whiteboard going so that we'll be able to sort of go over questions or work through examples that you might have. They're a really great way of sort of having or as close as we can, a live discussion about the material. So sometimes if you feel like you have a question but you don't know how to phrase it, come into those office hours and being able to sort of talk it out is a really great way of figuring out exactly what you wanted to ask and hopefully finding the answer to your question there. The third and final contact sort of option here, not listed directly on the syllabus, but you'll see it when you go onto our Canvas page, is that we have discussion boards available for each set of practice exercises and for each of your sort of quizzes. If you have any sort of content questions about a particular set of problems or exercises, you can use those discussion boards, pop your question on there, and I or one of your classmates will be able to sort of answer it there. And the big benefit of those discussion boards compared to, say, email, for example, is that if you ask a question on that discussion board, then everyone in the class is going to be able to benefit from that answer, from the sort of discussion there. So I would like to call attention to those discussion boards because they're a great way for everyone to sort of be engaged in content-related discussions and talks there. So again, as a quick summary, before we get into the meat of the syllabus, 3 major contact options: direct email, email listed right there, bmitchell@elcamino.edu. Weekly office hours via Zoom, Tuesdays 11 a.m. to 12 p.m., Thursdays 2 to 3 p.m. And finally, Canvas discussion boards for each major thing that we're doing. The last thing I sort of want to mention about reaching out and contacting during an online course like this is that you want to be as proactive as possible. The sooner you can reach out with your question, the better, because unlike sometimes talking in person, sometimes it can be really hard to ask exactly what you want to ask, right? Sometimes it's hard to phrase the question, or maybe you think you ask it one way, but in the response you get doesn't answer what your actual question was or something like that. The more proactive you can be, the sooner you can ask that question, the more time we can sort of go back and forth and really get to the heart of whatever the matter is there. Never hesitate to reach out via email or the Zoom office hours or the discussion boards, even if you feel like your question isn't super clear or you haven't even fully formed it yet. Try your best to say it, and we'll work out exactly what you're really trying to ask there. It's always good to just reach out, ask what you have, and we'll go from there. All right, let's move into sort of the main chunk of this syllabus here. So, in terms of prerequisites for this class, you should have taken some sort of intermediate algebra course, either here at El Camino or at another school, high school, something like that. While it is listed as a prerequisite for this class, if it's been a while since you've done algebra or you never felt particularly confident with algebra, it won't be a huge concern here, as we don't really use a lot of algebra in this class. Probably the most important sort of prerequisite knowledge for this course is comfortability with decimals, fractions, and percentages, and being able to convert between those. That is really the sort of crucial skill that we sort of need. We're not solving a ton of equations or things like that in this class. There's a few moments working with basic linear equations, but we'll sort of remind ourselves about that when we get there. So really the main thing you want to make sure you have from previous courses is comfortability with decimals, fractions, and percentages. If that's something that you don't feel super comfortable with, or it's been a while, you can take a look at what we call sort of practice 0, which sort of goes back over some of that. There's even sort of a section 0 in the course notes that goes back over sort of those conversions, and just make sure you have all of that sort of foundational knowledge. Other than that, pretty much everything you need to know in this course is taught to you in this class, and that's sort of unique. Unlike a lot of math courses that maybe build on other math courses, statistics is really its own sort of branch. As we'll sort of see in some of the later videos, it's really its own science completely, so it really is sort of self-contained there. There's a giant description of this course here. I'm not going to go ahead and spend too much time going through all that. It can be sort of interesting to read through if you want to know what we're going to be covering in this course, or you can go back and read it sort of later and really see that now maybe these things that didn't mean a lot to you or didn't really make a lot of sense right now, a few weeks into this class, they'll make a lot more sense, and you can really have a feeling of accomplishment there. What I do want to briefly mention, though, is this stuff right down here. As I mentioned at the start, our course is technically Math 150, which is elementary statistics and probability, but we also have 150S, which is a support course for this. So there's sort of a formal description of what support means at El Camino and how we sort of do that. Basically, the idea is, in terms of some of those prerequisite skills, having that support class attached to our main class gives you a chance to have some additional time to sort of review and practice some of the foundational stuff. What that's going to look like in our sort of online asynchronous format is that there are a number of sort of practice exercises and practice videos to watch if you're feeling like some of the stuff is a little bit more challenging or you just want additional review. So those things will be available to you. They'll be sort of mentioned in your schedules that you'll be getting each day on Canvas. And so just be aware that, since this is a course with support, there's a few additional materials there to try to help make sure that you get as much practice as possible and really help you sort of navigate any of the sort of more challenging pieces of this course here. All right, let's talk a little bit about materials for this class right down here. First of all, we'll talk about the required textbook. As you'll see, there is none. You guys get a full set of course notes posted to your Canvas page. Those course notes are written by me, and they take the place of a textbook. So you have something to sort of read if you like the sort of traditional aspect of having a textbook to read through, read examples, definitions, and things like that. But you don't need to go out and purchase any sort of additional textbook for that. In the past, many years ago, teaching this course, I would sometimes use this book called The Basic Practice of Statistics by Moore. If you really wanted an additional reference, you can certainly take a look at that, but it is certainly not necessary overall for the class. What is necessary for the class, though, is a calculator. You definitely need a calculator capable of performing statistical tests and computations. Generally, it is recommended to have a TI-84 plus model or above. That means like TI-84 plus, TI-87, 89, titanium, etc., etc. You can probably get away in this class with a TI-83 as well. You can certainly use other brands. It doesn't have to be a TI calculator, but when we get to some of the more complicated calculator operations, I do provide calculator demonstration videos where I show you how to do the computations on a TI calculator. That means if you use a different brand of calculator, it'll sort of be your responsibility to figure out how to do those same computations on your calculator. You're always welcome to reach out to me about calculator questions. Just be aware that following the material in the videos will be easier with a TI calculator. If you don't have a calculator, certainly you can purchase one, but what I actually more strongly recommend is making use of the calculator loan program at El Camino. There will be some information about the calculator loan program posted on Canvas, so definitely take a look at that. It's basically very simple, though. You give a small deposit to El Camino. They'll lend you a calculator for the entirety of the semester, and then at the end of the semester, if you return the calculator, you get your deposit back, and you'll basically have saved yourself from having to purchase a calculator for this class. So, in summary, no textbook is necessary. You guys will get a full set of course notes along with lecture videos, but if you want actual reading notes, there are a full set of course notes for you, so you'll have those, and you definitely need a calculator. You'll need that calculator as soon as possible because, again, with our sort of twice as fast pace in the summer, we'll be using the calculator basically in the first couple days of our class and from then onwards. So absolutely essential to have a calculator. Last thing I'll mention about the calculator is anytime in our course, if you ever have questions about using the calculator, always feel free to ask. This course is about you learning statistics and probability. Learning the calculator is something we have to do so that we have a mechanism that allows us to do some of the computations, but it's not the focus of our class. So never hesitate to ask how to do things on your calculator. It's not what I'm interested in testing you on. It's just something that we have. It's just a tool that we need to use. So always feel free to ask about it. All right, let's move on to the second page of our syllabus here. All right, there's a big list of course objectives drawn from the course description. All these things are things that by the end of this class you will know how to do. Again, it can be sort of fun midway or at the end of the class to go back over these and see that you've really accomplished all that. But for now, we're going to sort of slide down. There's a list of things that are objectives in the support class as well as student learning outcomes. Again, all of this, it's interesting to read through if you want to sort of see what we're going to be having in this class, but we'll have some introductory videos that sort of do that a little less formally as we begin our class. So let's move on to page 3 for now. So page 3 really gets to the sort of heart of the assessment part of our class. How are you guys sort of assessed? What are you graded on? So here's our grading policy. We do all of our grading based on sort of weighted percentages. So there's 3 categories, each that make up a different percentage of your grade. So first, there will be 4 take-home quizzes during the term. They make up 20% of your grade. There will be 3 midterms during the course of the semester. They make up 45% of your grade. And then there will be a comprehensive or cumulative final exam that makes up 35% of your grade. We use a very standard grading scale. 90% and above is an A, 80 to 89, B, C, 70 to 79, D, 60 to 69, F, everything else. So no real surprises there. Probably this is a moment where if we were meeting in person, there'd probably be a question about like extra credit or things like that. The extra credit policy in our classes is very simple. You will not find any extra credit assignments in our course. However, you will find on pretty much every quiz and every exam a few extra credit questions. So I don't expect that there will be an extra credit assignment at the end of the course to help boost your grade. But if you are interested in extra credit opportunities, look for at least 1 or 2 extra credit questions on every assessment that you do. All right, let's talk a little bit about each of these categories. So first, let's talk about the quizzes. We call them take-home quizzes, but of course, given the fact that you're taking this as an online class, everything is take-home at this point. But let's talk a little bit about those quizzes. Overall, there will be 4 quizzes during the term. When you're working on these quizzes, you can certainly discuss with your classmates. I'll have a discussion board on Canvas available for each quiz, so you can post questions there. I can respond to those questions. Your classmates can, so feel free to discuss and work with one another. However, each of you will submit your own work. So when you've worked through the questions on that quiz and you're ready to submit your solutions, you'll do that via Canvas individually. The quiz due dates are all already set. It's very simple. They will be due on the Tuesdays of weeks 2, 4, 6, and 8. So basically, every other Tuesday of our term, you will have one of these quizzes due. They are due by 11:59 p.m., so they're due at the very end of the day on the day that they're due. The quizzes will be submitted electronically. When you go to do that submission, you'll see a link on Canvas to what we call the electronic submission guidelines document, which just walks you through how to make an appropriate electronic submission. Basically, everything we're doing in this class, you'll be submitting as a PDF. When you go to create that PDF, you have a couple options. You can write out your work by hand and then use a converter that takes images from like your phone or tablet and turns them into a PDF. If you have a tablet, you can use electronic note-taking software and turn it into a PDF. We're very flexible in terms of how you create your solutions document. The sort of main requirement is that it comes out as a PDF so that it can be submitted through Canvas. If you have questions about that, read through the electronic submissions guideline, and hopefully that'll answer everything about how to submit stuff for this class. Keep in mind that, of course, submissions that are late or in an incorrect format can be penalized. And again, the details about that electronic submissions can be found on Canvas. So what's the sort of point of these quizzes? Well, these quizzes give you a way to sort of check in and make sure that you're understanding the sort of core concepts from each block of our class. Our class overall is divided very simply into sort of 4 quarters. We're sort of taking our 8 weeks and doing it in 4 pieces of 2 weeks each. In each of those quarters, there'll sort of be a quiz and an exam. So these quizzes give you an opportunity to sort of check in, make sure you're understanding the big ideas from that sort of quarter of the class. You'll get the solutions to the quiz before you take the exam, so you can review that and sort of know if you're on the right track or if there's things you sort of need to correct before the exam. All right, let's talk a little bit about the exams. So for the exams, we've got these 3 midterms. Again, their dates are preset, so make sure these days are available to you to take these exams. So absolutely essential to do that because these are already set in stone right from the start. They will be held on the Fridays of weeks 2, 4, and 6. So again, every 2 weeks, we have one of these midterm exams. Midterms are a little bit different than the quizzes. The quizzes I post up, and you guys have, basically over a week to sort of complete it. And as long as you get it in by the 11:59 p.m. on the day that it's due, it's all good. Midterms, the window to complete it is a lot sort of tighter. Midterms will be posted onto Canvas at 9 a.m. and then they are due by 5 p.m. So that means you have an 8-hour window to complete the midterm. Do the midterms take 8 hours to complete? Well, that's up to you. The midterms are written to be completed in about 2 hours, but I'm giving you an 8-hour window to sort of work through it in case you want additional time or in case you need additional time because you have other sort of commitments or responsibilities in that time period. Just be aware, though, it is absolutely essential that on each of those Fridays, weeks 2, 4, and 6, you are available from that 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., at least some portion of that window, to complete your midterms. When you're working on your midterms, you're allowed access to your notes and other course materials. That means you can look at your notes, the course notes, the lecture videos, any of our sort of course materials. What you're not allowed to do while working on those midterms is discuss the questions with any other students in the class or certainly any individuals outside of our class. Just like the quizzes, the midterms are submitted electronically via Canvas as a single PDF. Like I said, it is absolutely essential to have these dates open because no makeup exams will be given. So you want to absolutely make sure that these days are free for you for this term. Finally, if for some reason an exam is missed or perhaps one of the exams doesn't go as well as you would hope, we do have a replacement policy. One exam score can be replaced by your final exam score if the final exam score is higher. So if you do miss one of these midterms, or if one simply doesn't go as well as you would like, if you do well on your final, I will take that final exam score and replace that either missing midterm or your lowest midterm. If all of your midterms come in good and the final is a little bit worse, well, we're not going to replace any of those midterms. You'll keep all of your midterm scores and your final exam score. All right, let's talk a little bit about that final exam. The final exam for our class is a comprehensive or cumulative exam, which does mean that the final exam covers everything in our course from what we talk about starting on day 1 all the way to what we're talking about 8 weeks later. That does mean that it's challenging because it covers a lot of material. One advantage of taking this course in the summertime, where things are twice as fast, is that while the pace is very quick and there's a lot to be done, it is a little bit easier to keep track of all the material because you've learned it over 8 weeks instead of learning it over 16 weeks. So you don't have to sort of keep it in your head for as long. The final exam is held on the last day of class, which for us is Thursday, August 12th. Just like the midterms, the final exam will be open at 9 a.m., but the final exam is a little bit longer than the midterms, so you have a little bit wider of a window. You have until 9 p.m. to complete the exam. Again, the exam is not written to take you 12 hours. It's written to take you about 3 hours, but if you need a little bit of extra time or if you have other responsibilities or things on that day, you've got a full 12-hour window. You just got to basically find yourself 3 or so hours to complete the exam in there. Just like the midterms, you're allowed access to your notes for your final exam. That means your notes, our course notes, the practice problems, the lecture videos, any of the course materials you can reference as you're taking that final exam. Once again, because it is an exam, you're not allowed to discuss the work on the final exam with any other students in class, or certainly any individuals outside of the class. Just like everything else in our class, our final exam is submitted electronically via Canvas as a single PDF. So our course is very simple. We've got 4 quizzes. Those are due on the Tuesdays of weeks 2, 4, 6, and 8. Then, shortly after each of those quizzes are due, there's a midterm. Those are on the Fridays of weeks 2, 4, and 6. And then we've got our final exam on the very last day of class, which for us is Thursday, August 12th. So 4 quizzes, 3 midterms, and 1 final exam. That's everything that you'll be assessed on in this class. Certainly, if you have any questions about these assessments or what to expect, you can ask about them during our meet and greets on the first couple days of the term, or there's a discussion board on Canvas called General Course Questions. Feel free to pop any questions about how you're being assessed, how the grades work in there, and I'm happy to answer them. For now, though, let's move on to the next page of our syllabus. So here we've got some general requirements and important dates. Obviously, it's a good idea to read through all this and make sure you understand, but I'm just going to talk about some highlights in here. First of all, right here, you'll see that it mentions, once again, all the lecture materials are presented through videos posted on YouTube. What I generally like to do for that is I will post all of the videos necessary for the quarter of the class that we're on, or so basically for 2 weeks at a time, all at once. That gives you the flexibility of knowing sort of what you need to get done over the next 2 weeks so that you can sort of plan accordingly. I'll provide you with daily schedules of what I would recommend you complete each day, but I understand, you have other life responsibility, possibly other classes, other things going on. Some days you might be able to do a little bit more, some days you might be able to do a little less. So I generally like to provide you with everything you need for the 2-week chunks of our class at a time so that you can sort of play around with that and do it at a schedule that works for you. Again, that also sort of reminds you that you'll want to check Canvas regularly, because not only are all your assignments there and all the files, but also those schedules sort of reminding you about what you need to be completing, sort of, or where you need to be at to be on track for our class. Along with the sort of lecture materials, there's course notes. As I mentioned, there's also things that I call suggested exercises. They're practice problems. They'll help you prepare for completing the quizzes and the midterms. It's definitely highly recommended in this class to do as many of those practice problems as possible. I'll always mention those in the schedules, sort of letting you know which of those practice problems should be doable based on which lecture videos you've sort of watched so far. Again here, just another quick reminder that, while all the videos are hosted on YouTube, all the documents are on Canvas. So really there's two main spots to be looking for things for our class. All the lecture videos on YouTube, all the materials on Canvas. Here we just goes back over the sort of different ways to sort of communicate in the class. Remember, we've got 3 major ways: direct email, Zoom office hours each week, and discussion boards on Canvas. A couple important dates down here. The last day to drop the course without notation on your permanent record is Monday, June 28th. So if you realize that this summer format doesn't really sort of work for you, or the 8-week pace is too fast, or those Fridays are not good days for you to be taking exams, this is the day to drop the course by. There'll be no notation that you were in the class. You'll get a full refund for the course, everything like that. The second date that's important here, of course, is the second withdrawal deadline, which is Thursday, July 29th. That is the deadline that if you've stayed in the course, but maybe it's not working out the way that you sort of wanted, or your grade is not where you want it to be at, and you want to avoid a failing grade, you need to withdraw before that Thursday, July 29th. That way you'll get a W, but avoid a potentially failing grade. You'll receive reminders about both of these dates, and both of these dates apply to all summer 8-week courses. So if you're taking other classes, you'll probably hear the same reminders there. The last sort of important general announcement here, of course, is that just being responsible for all the announcements. Like I mentioned, you'll generally get daily schedules on Canvas, and I'll also post other announcements about things coming up or things like that. So definitely make sure you're monitoring those announcements via Canvas to make sure you're aware of everything that's going on in our course. Lastly, I just want to mention on this page a few cornerstones to success. I think these are pretty general. They probably would apply to certainly any mathematics course, probably any course in general, but I do want to just mention them in regards to our specific class. First of all, keeping up with the material, super essential, especially in an online asynchronous class. It is easy to let the sort of videos and stuff pile up, but it is absolutely essential to keep up with them as much as possible. By sort of doing them bit by bit, it'll be easier to understand and handle each concept because you're not having to sort of rush it if you try to do it all at the end. Also, as I mentioned, if you watch the videos earlier, if you have questions, you can reach out earlier. If you sort of wait and save too many of them all at once, if you do have questions, it's hard to ask all those questions right at the end and get, sort of good responses and answers to them. So if you keep up with the material and you work at it little bit by little bit, you'll be able to sort of digest it easier, ask questions more quickly. It'll be an overall better experience. Also keep in mind that since it's an online course, you can reread your course notes, you can rewatch the lecture videos. It's different than having a live lecture. Here, if you need to go back and rewatch things, always feel free to do so. Remember, that's even an option when taking your exams, right? These are all materials, right? You can always go back and reference and figure out exactly the sort of moment that something was mentioned and use that as you're sort of working through your different assessments. Taking good notes. Obviously, taking good notes in an online environment is a little bit different. If we were having live lectures, it'd be really essential to make sure you get down all the information. In an online format, it's not so much about writing down all the information, since you can go back and reference the lecture videos and things like that. But what's really important is making sure you make some sort of note or annotation about important examples or key moments so that when you're working on things, you know where in the lecture videos you need to go back to. If you're simply like, oh, I know this, it's somewhere in one of the videos, there's going to be a lot of videos, a lot of material that you have to hunt through. If you make some notes about, oh, this was a really important example in this video, or this is a really key moment or definition, I want to make sure I can go back to that, make note of that in whatever you're using to take your notes, and that'll be really beneficial. Again, also remember, the better your notes, the better it'll be for you overall in the class, because you'll have access to your notes for all the assignments, your quizzes, your exams, your final, everything. You always have access to your notes, so being organized is going to make everything a lot easier. Then, of course, studying adequately before the exams by reviewing your notes. For each exam, there'll also be a review guide, which is even sort of more practice specifically geared to getting you ready for the exam. Since our class doesn't have a lot of assessments, it's only got 4 quizzes, 3 midterms, and a final, it is really important to do your absolute best on each one. So it is super important, especially for those exams which make up the vast majority of your grade, to really prepare thoroughly for each of them. Finally, making use of the sort of resources. Like I said, we've got 3 different ways to sort of communicate: email, Zoom office hours, the Canvas discussion boards. Make sure to use those as much as is beneficial for you. Always feel free to reach out. Looking back at the textbook, the course notes that I provide, it's I'm not going to claim that my course notes are brilliantly written, but they do have the benefit of being written by me, which means that they're directly geared towards our class and the assessments that I write. So referencing those and making use of that resource is really beneficial. And of course, the other students in the class. If we were meeting in person, it would be easier to sort of talk to everybody. But with the discussion boards and with email and things like that, you guys can still have those discussions. And I think it makes it a lot easier when you have other people to sort of bounce your ideas off of. All right. We'll move on to the last page of our syllabus here. Just 2 quick mentions. Academic honesty, of course, super important to make sure that you're turning in work that is representative of you, and not sort of cheating in any sort of manner there. Keep in mind that when there's evidence of dishonesty in academic work, then there can be disciplinary action taken. But I also don't want to just call attention to this saying, oh, there's can be the potential of failing grades and things. But like I mentioned at the beginning, this statistics class is incredibly applicable and incredibly useful, not just in other courses or in mathematics, but just in sort of life in general. Our world is getting more and more data-driven. Basically, as every day goes by, there's more and more about data and how the importance of data. This class will help you be literate in that, so you want to make sure that you gain as much as you possibly can from it. This course is really for your benefit, so I want to make sure you guys get as much as possible out of that, and part of that is honest work for that you turn in. Speaking of trying to get the most possible out of this class and the most benefit, is the ADA statement, right? If you need any sort of accommodation for this course, anything that would make this course more beneficial for you, please make sure to reach out to me. Hopefully you've already talked to the Special Resource Center about that as well. But definitely part of the El Camino mission statement, and also part of the mission statement for myself, is to make sure that everybody benefits and gains as much as possible from my course. So I want to make sure that you have everything that you need to be as successful as possible. So if there is anything that you would like, or just feedback in general as you're taking the course, things that you would like to see or more clarification on topics, always feel free to reach out. With that being said, that pretty much brings us to the end of our syllabus video. Once you've completed the syllabus video and sort of had some time to read the syllabus, make sure you're comfortable with all that. Remember, if you do have questions about the setup of our class, there is a general course questions discussion board on Canvas. You can post questions there, or feel free to drop in for the meet and greets on Monday and Tuesday and introduce yourself and ask those questions directly so that you can make sure you understand the structure and the logistics of our course. Other than that, welcome to Math 150 150S. Should be an exciting 8 weeks, and I can't wait to work with all of you.